The first two films in the Lifting Immersion series, Lifting Learning and Lifting Practicing, show what is required to conduct a safe lift and what happens when you get it wrong. So how do you know that every lift on your site is planned and conducted with the same attention to detail that the team in Louisiana demonstrated? The answer is to test. Test the equipment, the process and the people. And test them frequently and thoroughly. So what tools are available to test lifting safety? At the individual level, we each have an obligation to ask ourselves, am I competent to fulfill my role and responsibilities on a lift? Have I been given the knowledge and skills to do the job safely? Do I have the right experience and the confidence that my actions will keep me and those around me safe? The next level involves testing our co-workers and supervisors to check they're competent to conduct their job safely. Your life may depend on it. The local behavioral-based observation program allows us to do this.
Okay, if not, we'll go on up and we'll go to where we're going to spot it.
And what about the lifting equipment? There should be an inspection protocol for every piece of equipment used in a lift. You need to test that each of these inspections has been conducted and that the equipment is fit for purpose and fit for use. You must also test that the person conducting the inspection is competent to do so. All these testing tools are normally specific to a particular contractor, BP asset or BP business unit, and within these boundaries you can acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to use them. Within BP, one testing tool, the Advanced Safety Audit or ASA, is common to all E&P operations. And with the right training and skills, you can test any lift anywhere in the world. On this CD, you will find a lifting facts and testing guide, along with a question list to help you and your team review and enhance lifting testing on your site. In this film, Ian Van uses one testing tool, the Advanced Safety Audit, to test lifting competencies on one BP site.
That's Sullen Voe, an inlet of the North Atlantic, up here in Shetland. 500 miles to the north is the Arctic Circle. 600 miles that way to the south is the City of London. And people there depend on what happens here at the Sullen Voe oil terminal, because 25% of the North Sea oil still comes ashore here. Now I should tell you, this is one of my favourite places. It's over 30 years since I first came here to study the rocks of these islands. At that time, before the coming of oil, the primary industry was fishing. And in these latitudes, that's a dangerous business. Many people over centuries died or were seriously injured in that job. But today, over there in Sullen Voe, Shetlanders are one of the safest workforces in BP. Over that fence, today is a culture where accidents are no longer accepted, where every day, every individual will strive to make this a safe place.
In the 21 years I've been here at Sullen Voe, I have seen a definite change in the safety behaviours. When I started here, it was very much a culture of getting the job done, and there was rewards for that. And that could even be exciting sometimes, at taking a risk knowing that there may be rewards at the end of it. But certainly through the 21 years, there's been a definite change towards a more safety-related culture.
We've gone from being an average performer to a top quartile performer in safety. It's about commitment, it's about management presence on the site, it's about buy-in from the workforce, and it's about building a track record.
I've come to Sullen Voe to find out what makes it so safe, specifically around lifting, to see what role testing and auditing of safety has in the building of a safety culture, and to see lifting testing in action. In the last programme, Scott Urban investigated how a safe and predictable lift was planned and executed. Testing or auditing at any stage of both planning and execution of lifts is a vital step in ensuring the lift team is competent to conduct a safe lift. We should never assume that all what-if scenarios have been covered. The equipment, is it fit for purpose and fit for use? The lift team, Does everyone know their role and responsibility? And are they competent to carry them out? The environment. Have all the hazards been identified and mitigated? And third parties. Have they been informed of the lift and plans developed to keep them out of the lift area?
The truth of the matter, of course, is I don't get involved directly in lifting operations, but I know a man who does.
John Bain is the competent authority responsible for auditing and approving all lifts at Sullom Voe. With over 30 years of experience, John plays a key role in conducting safe lifts and can tell us about the importance of testing. There are a number of tools used in the workplace to test the safety aspects of a lift. One method used regularly at Sullom Voe is advanced safety audits, or ASAs.
So I guess my overall reaction to lifting, John, is it scares me. I never get near lifts, I keep away from them. Should that be my attitude, or should I feel confident?
You should feel confident, but I can understand why you would say that, because there's been such an issue over the last few years. We lifting incidents here and there, and it's something that's close to my heart, to be quite honest with you, to try and stop all that, because at the end of the day people get hurt. We need competent people who are trained to the best possible standards. Our guys have all been on a North Sea lifting training scheme, which gives them certification.
On this question of certification, how do you know that the people are any good at the job? What gives you confidence in people's behaviour?
We would do on a regular basis safety audits on what they're doing to make sure they're performing as we would wish. That can be in the form of ASAs. I can be on them, or I get feedback. And if I get feedback where there's an issue and I feel there's an issue to be brought up, then I'll get the team together that were involved and say, look, we have an issue with this particular way you did this.
You're visiting the work site. You're talking to people that are working, and you're talking to them about their safety. You're asking them questions like, what could go wrong? How could you get hurt? And what can you do to prevent it?
On a 1,000-acre site like Sullom Voe, one person cannot be present at all lifts. However, all staff have tools accessible to them to enable them to test. Carolyn Mackay, a contractor, is a general assistant in the canteen. She has been a safety rep for 18 months and is used to doing audits, but not in the area of lifting.
At Sullom Voe, safety to me means making sure that everybody goes home the same state as they came here. Working safely, being safe, and hopefully making everybody else safe.
Jim Gillespie, also a contractor, has 20 years of experience in the rigging operations of a lift. Together with Carolyn, they're going to help a novice like me see firsthand what is involved in an audit of a lifting operation.
You guys are the experts here. Carolyn and I are just amateurs in the matter of lifting. So as we go out on site, what are the things we should be looking for?
Well, ultimately, I mean, lifting operation is by definition fairly hazardous, and as we've seen with incidents we've seen recently, we need to pay a lot of attention to how we prepare for them, how we check that we're doing everything properly, and really highlighting the points that you look for if you're doing a safety audit is the general behaviour of people. We also need to look at all the peripheral stuff to do with the lifting gear that's there, where the crane is sited, certification, weather conditions. There's a whole raft of stuff there. I mean, if you're people who are not really conversant with lifting operations, then I would ask you to take part in an audit and think about some of the things I've mentioned, but also look for things for yourself and ask if there's a question surrounding that.
So this sign I saw as I came in the building here, the lifting colour is green. What does that mean?
It literally means that the gear they're working with is in certification. It will be certificated this when it's new, but we have to have it inspected every 6 months by a third party to say that that equipment can then be colour-coded green or possibly next time blue, just to show that it's in certification.
So those colours relate to a particular month?
A 6 monthly period it is.
6 monthly period,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a complete novice to anything to do with lifting equipment. If we see something out there that we think is unsafe, how do we go about stopping the job?
Well, 100% of the time you can stop the job, but you do it through the banksman that's there directly involved in the lifting operation, because he may need to ensure that the crane driver, if it's a crane that's involved, makes that load safe before you take the matter any further. Don't want anything interfered with that could affect people's safety, really.
So, the vital role of testing is to bring regular questioning to everyone involved in the work. Nothing should be assumed in a lift, and everything can be questioned. To get the testing process accepted, to get everyone not just comfortable with the idea, but actively participating, the audit must support the positive behaviours and actions of the lift team, and be non-confrontational in probing for unsafe acts and conditions. The whole process relies on a deep feeling of inquiry and a passion for stopping an unsafe lift. Simply put, have you questioned every action involved in the lift?
The advanced safety audit is basically a very simple process. It's all about people. It's about planning to visit the work site, going out on site and talking to people with a safety agenda.
Is there any chance we could do an ASA?
Advanced safety audits we do here on the site are based on people, what the people do and their reactions and the conversations you have with them. When you go out on site and you meet the people, you can sometimes hear and see things that you would never know about if you just sat in the offices and never went out there.
Wonder if you could explain to me exactly what this you're doing with this.
I think the most important thing is to listen. If you don't listen to what people are saying to you, you won't ever learn how things are happening.
It's certified, is it?
Yeah, and we check. We've got paperwork for all the valves, all the pipe work, that size of pipe work.
Right.
We've got a sheet up in the office. We just go in, it'll tell you everything, every weight, everything you're taking out there.
Watching Carolyn and Jimmy perform their ASA while I discussed the details with John was a useful introduction to the open questioning techniques required for a lifting audit.
What I would be asking if I was down here is exactly what we were talking about before. Angles, how much are they allowing for the lift? How do they know the weight of the lift to begin with? Another thing is the weather. It's fairly breezy. If the crane was lifting a light weight, then we may have a problem.
When you're doing the lift here, are you perfectly sure who's in control of the lift?
Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes can help. I tend to ask the silly questions that everybody else knows the answer to, but I don't. And sometimes you get a good answer. Sometimes the person you ask doesn't know the answer, but they're willing to find out.
If anything that you see that you're not happy with, even if it's okay, you just stop it. It's not a problem.
I see the advanced safety audit as my eyes and ears and my leadership team's eyes and ears of safety behaviours on the site. A key part of that is that I personally and my leadership team and the supervisors on the site have to be visible on the site, have to be involved in the programme. If we're not there, we're not seeing what's going on, how do we really know what the actual practices are on the site?
Jan, can we just have a word for a wee while?
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Hi.
We want to do an ASA on what you're about to do here and just ask you a few questions.
Okay, yes.
The second lift we tested was my opportunity to put into action what I'd learned from Jimmy and Carolyn, but with the advantage of having an experienced engineer like John leading the safety audit.
How often do you renew your own qualifications yet?
Well, we are going on a course every 3 years, and I'm actually due on a rigging course, a refresher course,
Right.
and they will send me down to Aberdeen, where I will actually spend a week and do a refresher course. As well as we have, depends on what sort of certificates you have, be it a forklift, crane driver, overhead crane, etc. And all these are actually renewed on a regular basis, usually every 3 years.
And if I wanted to see these certificates for you, where would I go?
Well, John, they have a copy, so they would tell me that, Jan, you are due to go on such and such a course in 2 months' time.
During the conversation there may also be agreements made between the auditor and the people being audited. They're usually local agreements, things that the people doing the job can do themselves. And usually the ideas come from the people themselves.
So I guess we started to learn something about Jan's competency, but
Yes.
what is it that distinguishes a banksman from a rigger, or is that a specific piece of
I'm
trade?
beginning to be more aware that no matter how much has been put into the planning of a lift, a detail can still be missed. Testing for complete competence of the team and the appropriate certification is an ongoing process beneficial to all those taking part.
So team, we've finished our work out on site, and I was hoping you could start to feedback me your general impressions of how it went.
I'd never seen a lift done before, so going out there and seeing everything done, I was impressed by how much everybody on the job knew. They all knew who was in charge, what the regulations were, where the information could be found.
I was struck by that too. I mean, it seemed to be going back to some of those themes. You know, we tested out the competence of people, and you kind of test that both in the conversation, but also in the fact of people's training, people's recording of their own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important, I think you've got sitting in front of you here, John, some of the data that tells us.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that somebody asked of the crane driver. How did he know the crane was everything it was supposed to be? These are records to show right through the original test when the crane is provided new, through to checks we do, in-depth checks on the machinery itself. Everything in there is checked.
The key advantage of an ASA over the other things that we have in our toolbox is that we record the findings from an ASA. It's important that we collect trends. The trends help sometimes identify things that maybe you don't see on a day-to-day basis.
If you have a conversation with an individual and actions result, it may be actions that the individual takes on, or it may be actions that the auditor takes on. It's important to follow these up. In fact, it's very important, and it supports the behavioural process. If you think about it, if you come back maybe a week after that conversation and ask how the individual is getting on with the actions that came about, it's very powerful.
If there is a site manager who doesn't have a system in place to audit the safety culture on his site, then I would implore him to get one.
What I would say to a site that doesn't perform advanced safety auditing or any such similar process, how do you know how safe you are?
So here, testing is seen as a vital way of improving and maintaining safety performance. I've learned that it needs to be a part of every day. No matter how good your performance is, testing needs to be done, and done regularly. I've also learned that anyone can do an ASA, that even I can gain the confidence to ask the right questions that might save a life. And if I can, you can.